let's talk about how you can get overnight success in B2B. Spoiler, it doesn't exist, okay? So let's be realistic about this. There's so much, I would say, nonsense that's out there that is going to throw up different ads to you, different things that show up to say, here's how we can get you 100 leads overnight. Here's how we can get you qualified leads in your pipeline in 24 hours, blah, 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 okay? Realistically, that's not how it works, okay? So let me go over what realistically needs to happen for overnight success in B2B. Now, before I even move on to this, if you think about overnight success for anybody, whether a musician, they're a sports athlete, whatever it is, okay? Overnight success just doesn't exist, okay? So even if we look at the likes of basketball players, we look at the likes of, let's just take a popular example, Michael Jordan. He wasn't actually an overnight success. He practiced and practiced and practiced, and that was his craft. He mastered his craft, okay? You look at musicians, okay? Most musicians, they don't just get discovered at a show by an A&R rep from a record label. They've gone through years of, first of all, learning their instrument, let's say guitar, whatever it may be, okay, or drums or whatever, or even singing. They've gone through all the different small town gigs that they went where they were playing to pretty much nobody, okay, or the same people over and over again at the same kind of bar, okay, and then all of a sudden they are discovered through either, at a small gig by an A&R rep, or one of their songs goes semi-viral on YouTube or whatever it might be. Again, overnight success doesn't exist in anything, especially not in B2B, okay? Now, more so in B2B because, again, typically there's a longer sales cycle in the B2B world. And I want to just talk about how overnight success, about how you can do things in the background so that you do have overnight success in B2B, okay? So what I'll actually do is I'll actually flip the board around so I can run over some examples here as well, okay? So again, there's loads of different, let's say, ads, loads of different things that are grabbing your attention, and they grab your attention because you're in some sort of pain, okay? So again, if it says we can get you qualified leads overnight for your SaaS company, whatever it might be, whatever industry, whatever B2B industry you're in, okay? There's ads targeted to you that say you can do this, okay? You will only resonate with that ad if you're in a bit of a moment where you're going, actually, revenue is down, we do need more people and we want them fast, okay? Because people are at me and yeah, we need more people in the pipeline converting fast, okay? Even if that's the case, if you have people that are in your pipeline, typically in the B2B world, they're not going to convert into revenue because there's a longer sales cycle, there's more touch points needed, more departments need to speak internally, whatever it might be, okay? So there's lots of different ways that you can do this, but I'm just going to go over one example for each in inbound, outbound, and on a paid side of things as well, okay? So this is how you have overnight success, okay? Because there's a lot of prep that goes in before overnight success. So just one particular example, actually I'll start with outbound, okay? So I'll just put a no there for outbound. So in most cases in outbound, you're probably going to be doing this either through email outreach or you're going to be using LinkedIn, okay? Actually, I'll do an example for both, okay? So let's just say email and LinkedIn, okay? So with email outreach, yes, somebody may reply to you at some stage and they get on a call with you and that's overnight success, okay? But you have to set up the system, okay? And forget about the system, but even just a part of the system, which is the email accounts, okay? First of all, one of the things that most people don't know is that you have to use other domains, as in you can't use your own company domain for email outreach. You'll just absolutely destroy any reputation that you have. So you have to use other email domains, okay? So let's say that you are xyzcompany.com and for outreach purposes, you buy xyz-company.com, okay? One of the other things that you need to do then is you need to have, let's say, 3 to 5 email accounts within that, okay? So you're going to have email number 1, email number 2, and email number 3, okay? So again, you can either use your own name or you can use an avatar. So that could be janedoe@xyz-company.com. This could be jane.doe@xyz-company.com, and this could be jane.d@xyzcompany.com, okay? Why do you need all of those? Well, because if the email service providers, being Google, Outlook, whoever it is that you use, if they see that you are sending the same message, or the one particular email account essentially is sending the same message again and again and again to lots of different people, you are marked as spam, okay? So you need to actually spread this out so essentially you get around the email service providers. So even if you do that, okay, which first of all is going to take time. Now, don't get me wrong, you could literally do this in half an hour, maybe even less, okay? But the next thing that comes up then is those accounts need to be warmed up. because you've just bought this domain, okay? It never existed before, but you bought this domain and now you've bought these email accounts as well, okay? Whether it's on Google or Microsoft or whatever it is, okay? So if you start sending emails straight away, the email service providers, again, the likes of Google and Outlook or whoever else, they all of a sudden they start seeing that you're sending a lot of emails from that one account and that never existed before. Actually, that domain even never existed before. Where's this person come from? This has to be spam, okay? So you have to warm up those emails first of all, okay? So realistically, you should give it anywhere between 14 to 30 days. I personally like to prefer the 30-day side of things, but the absolute minimum is 14 days, okay? That's 2 weeks, okay? So if you want to have, and look, the reason I'm saying outbound, inbound, and paid, because they're the only ways that you're going to get customers, okay? There's no other channels, okay? So if you're doing outbound, and it's, let's say, email in this case, you can't have overnight success for a minimum of 14 days. Now, look, you might send emails to people on day 15, and you could get replies, and you could get calls booked. That's where the overnight success comes from, okay? But there's a lot of setup that goes before that, okay? And again, I'm not making this video to put anybody down or to be a downer about any of this sort of stuff. I prefer to be realistic. I prefer to be honest and transparent about all this sort of stuff. And if it means that you're going to prevent yourself from being burned at some point in the future from someone who offers this sort of stuff, then even better, okay? If you go into this with realistic expectations and you know it's going to take a minimum of 14 days to warm up the emails, and then you won't actually launch any emails to anybody for at least 2 weeks, then that's fine. Now, the reason I say that about expectations is because we as humans are only ever upset when our expectations are not met, okay? Now, that's not in regards to what someone says they can do for us for our pipeline or whatever it might be. That's anything. You go to a restaurant, the food wasn't as good as you thought it would be, so your expectations weren't met, therefore you're upset, okay? Now, upset is a very broad term. It doesn't mean that you're throwing your plate across the room at the chef, but it just means that, you know, you weren't as happy as you thought you would be with this, okay? You go to see a new movie that's out. You've heard the new James Bond film is pretty good. You go to see it. Because you had those expectations of it being pretty good, you just go, it's just like any other James Bond film. It wasn't great. So your expectations were not met, okay? Again, as humans, the only time we're ever upset is when expectations are not met, okay? So that's why in this case, overnight success, those expectations will never be met, okay? So I'm just trying to be realistic and hopefully save you from some hurt here if you do anything like this in the future as well, okay? Now, the other option here is LinkedIn. Again, if you just set up a LinkedIn account and you haven't set up the LinkedIn account like there's no picture, there's no previous history of where you've worked, there's no heading, there's no banner image, there's no profile picture, or any of that sort of stuff, okay? And then you start messaging people. First of all, people aren't going to reply from a LinkedIn account that's got nothing on it, okay? Especially no picture. But also LinkedIn themselves will go, this is weird. This account was only set up and it's sending the same message to everybody. This has to be spam. Let's get rid of it. And the account will get blocked, okay? So again, you have to give this time essentially to warm up as well. Start making connections, start doing different things that would look organic, natural on the likes of LinkedIn. Make it look real, and then after a while, again, minimum 14 days, but I would say longer with LinkedIn, to be honest with you, then you can start pushing it. Now, don't push out loads at the same time, kind of go piece by piece. So you're sending one message a day, then send 2, then send 3, then send 4, so on and so forth, okay? So that's the organic side of things, again, where overnight success comes from, okay? Again, a lot of this overnight success, yes, you might have overnight success once you click launch on the email campaign here, okay? But there's a lot that goes into it before that you can actually click launch, okay? Same with the LinkedIn side of things. So let's talk about then inbound. So even with inbound, and again, let's just use SEO as an example here, okay? So with the likes of inbound, if you look up how long does SEO take to work, typically what you're going to be shown is 3 to 6 months, okay? Now, there is ways that you can do that a lot faster. The fastest we've ever been able to do it for a company before is we were able to get a page that didn't exist at all. We were able to get it to number 1 in Google, not page 1, but number 1 in Google in 16 hours. That's our quickest time we've ever been able to do that. Again, by using a free tool, which I've spoken about in previous videos as well, okay? So 16 hours was our quickest time to ever do that, okay? Even with ranking somebody whose page didn't exist for the keyword and search term they wanted and was their perfect term to get the right people in, ranked in 16 hours, the owner of that company was not happy. The reason the owner of that company was not happy is not because we were able to rank them 3 to 6 months faster than anybody else said that they'd be able to, but because their assumption was well, why am I not getting leads immediately overnight? Okay, so they had the assumption that if their page ranked successfully, that they would have hundreds of leads overnight. Okay, when you actually look at the data, and unfortunately we had to explain this to that person as well, the search term they were ranking for, and I'm actually going to give higher numbers just for example's sake here, okay, was let's say 100, okay? That particular search term, there was 100 people looking for per month, okay? So it was a fairly niche product, let's say, okay? So even if you rank for that particular term, there's 100 people searching it per month, realistically, you're going to get about 8% of the clicks. So now, well, actually, if you're number one, you're going to get about 33% of the clicks, okay? So let's say that that person got 33 clicks then, okay? And again, I'm just using somewhat hypothetical numbers here, okay? Just to show where not everybody wants to have their expectations, or not where expectations sometimes are not met, okay? But this is the reality. So let's say 100 people and you're ranking number one. So let's say 33% of people actually click on your website. The most common conversion rate for when people are on a website is 2%, okay? So that would mean that then 2% of the people there actually then would have converted, okay? Now, 10% of this would be 3 people, okay? So if they wanted immediate results overnight, they'd have to have a stupid conversion rate, okay? A really, really high conversion rate. Now, this is not just like a landing page for ads where you typically kind of get like higher conversion rates if it's been optimized correctly. This is just an organic page, okay? So that page, even if 33% of people clicked it, which let's say 33 people in a month, okay? So let's say one person a day, okay? Typically it's going to be 2% of those people will actually convert, okay? So even if 100 people were to click it, they would have got about 2 new leads, okay? That's just industry average, okay? But they wanted hundreds of leads overnight because they were ranking number one. Their assumption was, well, if I rank number one, leads will just flow in all the time. Why wouldn't they? If you have to give that time. If you had something you were ranking where you had a million searches every month, then yeah, of course you're probably going to get more people. But realistically, that's not how it's going to happen, okay? So again, we had to go back to that person and say, well, actually, you're ranking number one, but you won't get leads overnight because that's just, there's not that many people looking for what you do. Even if you were to do something extremely popular, okay, extremely relevant to millions of people, okay? Let's say you wanted to, there's a new Harry Potter book out, okay? And your search term is buy new Harry Potter book, okay? And your bookstore or whatever it is comes up number one above Amazon and all that sort of stuff, okay? And let's say that 1 million people are searching for that per month, okay? Now, again, that's probably a bad example because not 1 million people per month are going to search a new Harry Potter book. There's not a new Harry Potter book every month. But the reason that I'm saying this here is because even if you were to do that, okay, where you're ranking for loads of people, that doesn't mean that 1 million people are going to buy the book overnight. That doesn't mean if the book is $10, you're going to make 10 million overnight. That was unfortunately the assumption with this person. Even though we had explained before that, look, this takes time to work, their assumption then was because they thought that the time was bypassed because it was number one in 16 hours, that this would start to happen and flow overnight, okay? This inbound works gradually over time, okay? If you saw one of my previous videos, we talked about how it was evergreen, and if you've done it correctly, and you continue to rank number one month after month after month after month, it organically brings you leads in month after month, okay? But this person, I don't know what information they saw on YouTube or something before, some crazy clickbait title or some ad that said, if you do SEO right, you should get hundreds of leads overnight, okay? I don't know what the hell they saw before that it made them have that expectation, but that was just not realistically how it happened, okay? That's not realistically how it happens for anybody. And unfortunately, sometimes when we were a B2B agency, we had to explain that to people that, well, actually, I say sometimes, that was the only time that ever happened, actually. But the reason I'm giving that example is because that person's expectations were not met, because their expectations did not align with reality, even though we explained that to them. Again, once it was explained to them, they did understand, but initially they were upset because their expectation was, I'm ranking number one, I should get all the leads that are coming in. None of my competitors will get them anymore because I'm number one, I'm the best. To be honest, in that case, that was one of the only times ever we worked with a CEO. We weren't working with the marketing team. That's one of the only times we ever worked with CEOs. And look, if you're a CEO watching this, I'm sorry to say, but CEOs tend to have really big egos, and they tend to want to be number one, to be the best, and to beat everybody, okay? Maybe that's where that assumption came from. But again, that's the variable there, is that we worked with a CEO. Again, I'm not blaming that person. I'm not saying that anything bad, blah, blah, blah. They still rank number one for that term. So again, they are getting leads constantly as well, okay? Now, again, we haven't worked with them in 18 months, maybe more. But again, the leads they thought they were getting overnight, they now have because of the last 18 months work, okay? When I say 18 months work, the last 18 months of that page ranking number one organically, okay? So that's where sometimes inbound, the expectations cannot be met. Now, the reason I bring this up as a story is because if you're in the position where you are in marketing and you want to do some SEO, you want to do some inbound because you understand the power of it, and you understand that it will bring you in leads every month, which will help with your KPIs. But you're afraid because the assumption may be that, oh, but my CEO wants overnight leads. They want 100 leads once we're ranked on number one on Google or page one on Google, okay? Because again, anytime that we've spoken to CEOs before, which is rare, but anytime that we have, they have these crazy assumptions, okay? Because they read an article about somebody that ranked number one, or somebody that did this in whatever it was, and they're getting these results and they think, oh, I can do that too. And they're looking at someone who's an exception to the rule rather than the realistic, okay? But again, you can get those results. It just takes time. That's why, again, the whole point of this video is these overnight successes that we hear about, they're not overnight success. But again, in that particular case that we were helping somebody, that was literally overnight success in regards to ranking them for after only 16 hours for a brand new page that never existed before. And now, because of that 16-hour successful ranking, they are getting leads month after month after month after month after month, okay? That's where the overnight success comes in. The overnight, yes, can happen overnight, but the success part, that takes a while, okay? I hope I've explained that clearly, okay? So now we move on to then the paid side of things. Now, this is I was gonna say a really bad one. What's the best way to word this? This is where there's a lot of expectations, a lot of overnight success expectations. Again, especially from C-suites, CEOs, again, people who don't really understand the nuances that go into setting up these campaigns correctly, all that sort of stuff, okay? Even from some marketing people, they just assume that they can run an ad. Let's say that this is that's a PPC ad, pay-per-click ad, whether it's on LinkedIn or whatever it might be, or they run a search engine marketing ad, okay? So it shows up in Google search or whatever it might be, okay? So again, most people, again, I'm not just gonna say CEOs, but definitely CEOs in this case, but even some marketers, they assume that you can just throw a bunch of keywords into a campaign and you will get instant results overnight, okay? Now, here's the thing. You can, but for most people who have that assumption, they don't have enough knowledge and understanding about how the ads platforms actually work. So if you were to get overnight success, you'd be very lucky, okay? Because most people, again, let's say in regards to search engine marketing, most people, first of all, choose the wrong keywords to target, okay? Especially if you're doing whatever the CEO says because you're afraid to tell them what reality is. But if your CEO says to you, we want to rank for best accounting software, best SaaS, whatever, okay? You just go, yeah, okay, no problem, I'll do that. Because again, if you don't, you just fear that you'll lose your job, okay? But then that gets nothing, because that's not realistically the keyword that you want to be ranking for, because most times anything with best in it just shows kind of listicles. Here's the 10 best accounting softwares, here's the 12 best accounting software, whatever it is, okay? So that's, Google's literally telling you in that case, that's not what people are looking for, but they'll happily take your money, okay? But that's why there's also then, after these assumptions don't go the way that people want, and again, our expectations are not met, so therefore we're unhappy, that's when people then have this negative feedback loop that Google ads don't work, it's just a scam, people are taking money from us, how dare Google do this, okay? But if you set them up correctly, take the time to actually put in the right research for the right keywords, set up your match types. Most of you, I don't even know if you probably know what match types are, depending on what level your expertise are with that sort of stuff. Again, we've done a video about that previously, you can check it out. But there's so many things that can actually help you to get the results, even overnight, to get the results that you want, okay? The reason that for most people this is not overnight success is because the assumptions of how this is all run, again, most people assume, I'll just throw some money at it and then we have overnight success. That's not how it works. You really need to understand the nuances of these platforms. Again, if you were to advertise here on Google through search engine marketing, totally different to advertising here on LinkedIn, where you're going to have some sort of media, okay? Whether it's video, whether it's a picture. Again, your headline here will be different, your call to action here will be different. There's essentially no call to action here on search engine marketing. It's just, you have to really understand what's going on in these things, okay? If you have the expertise in these, yes, you may get overnight success. But even if you do have expertise in these and you're running a new campaign, typically you're not going to get overnight success, because realistically, especially in the B2B world, you'll be targeting keywords that don't have 1 million searches per month. I actually can't think of anything in B2B that would have 1 million per month, okay? They're probably going to be smaller. That's a good thing. And most people avoid this, okay? Because they don't want to, they don't want to go after a smaller pool of people. They want to just cast a wide net and go after as many people as they possibly can, okay? That's realistically not what you should do for the best results, okay? Go after the smaller, more targeted, more search intent keywords in the likes of this particular campaign here. And yes, less people will click on your ads, but it means that the people who do click on it are more qualified and they're more likely to convert into revenue, okay? That's the overall goal here, okay? But even in that case, that takes time, because let's say someone clicks on your ad on, let's be optimistic here and say that it's day one of running the ads and someone clicks on your ad, okay? But that doesn't mean they're going to book a call straight away, okay? If they're going through, if you have to set up as a funnel, for example, let's say that you need to follow up with that person, okay? Is there a reason you didn't book an ad? Is there a reason that you didn't book a call with us? Is there something in particular you're looking for help with? Blah, 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 okay? That could be on day 4, because your salesperson or whoever's supposed to be following up with these people have other things to do between days 2 and 3 or whatever it may be, okay? That person could book a call then, and the call could be for next week on day 8, okay? So we've already gone a week further here where we're not getting overnight results. And let's just, again, be optimistic and say this is a 1-call close, okay? Your salesperson gets on a call with this person, they're closed immediately, but that's on day 8, okay? So you ran this campaign on, let's call it day 0, okay? And then after a week, that someone has converted. So it's still not overnight success. Look, that's not realistically how it happens either for most cases, especially in B2B. But again, I said I'm being that's an optimistic example there, okay? So even in an optimistic example, it's still not overnight success, okay? Even in that one, a very optimistic example. To get page 1, or to get number 1, not page 1, number 1 in 16 hours, again, for very optimistic, but the actual result in regards to revenue didn't come till much later, okay? Same with this here. Yes, you can launch a campaign. This is kind of the reverse. Yes, you can launch a campaign on day 0 technically, but day minus 14 has to start here, okay? Because you can't go to day 0 launch until you've done everything that goes here as well, okay? So look, that was just some examples about how overnight success isn't really overnight success. No matter what somebody says to you, there's always going to be either setup that needs to happen before, or there's going to be follow-ups that need to happen, or they're in your pipeline for a while, or there's a long sales cycle, whatever it is, okay? So again, I don't make this video to be a downer and to say that this doesn't exist, but if you're constantly looking for silver bullets, magic hacks, all that sort of stuff, like I did a video there recently where I said the only thing that's going to work for you is being consistent. It's the exact same here, okay? The only thing that's realistically going to work is being consistent. Because again, let's say that you didn't get overnight results like you wanted here, but now all of a sudden you have, let's say that those ads, again, let's be optimistic, let's say that they were a very good campaign. Let's say you get 40 new leads from that, okay? Let's say half of them are qualified. Let's say that's 20 are qualified. Let's say of the qualified people, half of them book a call, so that's 10. Let's say you have a closing rate of 20%. That's 2 extra new clients, okay? Now, that could have taken, let's just call it 7 months, okay? For you to get those 2 clients from essentially launch day 0 on campaign to whatever it is, day 193 or whatever 7 months later would be, okay? So the thing that most people don't understand is that, let's say you ran this for 2 months, okay? Then all of a sudden you have, again, let's just say that the numbers are the same. So now we have 80 people here, we've got 40 people there, we've got 20 people that booked a call, and now 4 people have actually become paying clients, okay? But those extra 2 people then, to make it 4, they didn't actually convert until, let's say it's month 8 and month 9, okay? But here's the thing, after, that's typically 6 months, for most B2B anyway, especially with the way the sales cycle is, that you constantly have people that are closing, because you're constantly filling up the top of your pipeline so that people can go through and become qualified, book calls, close, etc., etc. Okay, and then for most of you watching this, probably monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue, whatever way you have it set up. Okay, so again, the overnight success is like, this is really hits the panic people when they have nobody in the pipeline or not a lot in the pipeline. But after you do all these sort of things for, let's say, realistically 6 months, you have a constant flow in your pipeline, okay? So you're constantly topping up the top of your pipeline, you're constantly qualifying those people in the pipeline, you're constantly booking calls with those people or demos, whatever it is that you do with those people in the pipeline, and there's a constant flow in the pipeline so that every single month you have new people, you have new qualified leads, you have new calls booked on the calendar, you have new people who are closing and turning into revenue, okay? So overnight success can take 6 months in that case, okay? So again, not to be a downer making this video, but if you've seen any of my videos before, you know I like to be incredibly realistic and transparent about all this. Yeah, but if there's anything in particular that you do want a bit of a hand with, and if you do want kind of a fast track way of how to do this and how to do all this right so you get it right from the start, you can check out the first link in the description. We help B2B companies with that every single day of the week. Again, whether it's outbound, inbound, paid side of things, like the tactics that we have and that we've implemented for people before, absolutely powerful and can get you much better results than these examples here as well, okay? So hopefully you got some value from that, and we'll see you in the next one.